A true owner should learn to empower their people to do the right thing right.
If you're attempting to do the right things in a robotic way, people feel that and you don't get the results that you're looking for.
COVID lit the fuse. We are entering a phase of our industry where technology is taking over for better or for worse.
When something breaks down or there's a service failure, we're still going to need people and leaders that can lead in that environment and handle those situations well.
Welcome to the What Do You Stand For podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the What Do You Stand For podcast, the place where emerging leaders in hospitality come to when they want to be inspired, informed, and transformed. My name is Arthur Keith, and today I am delighted to have with me David Chu. David, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Arthur. It's nice to be on your podcast.
Hey, man, I know what you have to offer, and I know you bring a lot. I know you bring a wealth of knowledge, but just for the sake of our listeners, can you tell everyone who David Chu is and how did you get here?
Sure. So David Chu really started out his career with a very well-known hotel company known as Stouffer Hotels and Resorts way back in the mid-'80s. Throughout my career, I've traveled extensively. I've worked for a number of hotel groups, some domestic, some international, and each and every one has taught me a different lesson about listening and learning and what this industry is all about.
So, David, let me ask you this. What would you say is your superpower?
Superpower. I think you made that up, but there's nothing super about what I do. I love empowering people to really stand on their own feet and to think on their own 2 feet. And I support them with the tools and the resources to mentor them and bring the best out in them. That's been my modus operandi and my management style for forever.
Yeah, the thing I love about you, you bring a perspective to the hospitality industry, to the podcast that we haven't regularly had. And while you've certainly evolved and grown from when I first met you and I was in sales, and I still view you as a sales guru who showed me what it was like and taught me the ins and outs of building relationships and connecting with clients in a high-paced city like New York. And I just think you do have a superpower and that you can run and excel at a pace in a high-vibrancy city in our industry like no one else can. And you may not say it, but I'm going to say that for you. So I think that is your superpower. One of the things I love about you, your heart for mentoring others. And when we got together and talked about, hey, what should the topic be that we talk about? You threw out the topic of doing the right things right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm just curious for our audience and for our listeners, what does that mean to you?
I'd say many years ago, it had zero meaning until I encountered an experience as a manager on duty for a very well-known 4-star hotel in Manhattan. And I woke up one morning and I got a call from the front desk manager about a guest very upset that the room service order was delivered on time. All the foods and the items that she ordered were well done, but she blew her top off when she said, "There's no butter with my toasted bagel." And that was a moment that hit me in the face, right? But there was one item that was wrong. We didn't include the butter. The room service waiter did not go through the checklist. He just did not realize that you cannot send a hot toasted bagel up to a VIP suite with no butter. By the time the call came to the front desk and we delivered the butter, the toast was toast.
I know New Yorkers really they enjoy a good bagel.
But
So,
Arthur, as simplified as that story may sound and as kind of comical as it is, it's about details.
Right.
Being attentive to the details. You can't do something right when you don't realize that you're doing it wrong. Oftentimes, we as leaders tell people, get it done. You know, these famous 3 words, get it done. And we say, yeah, sure. Just out of fear or just frantically leave the room because someone of higher authority has just told you to go get it done. And so you scramble and you look around and you're not really focusing on how to do the right thing right versus just completing the task. Well, completing a task can also be very hazardous to all those folks around you who don't know what you're doing, can't even come to your rescue or support you because you've never stopped to communicate to them what you're doing. So how are you going to do the right thing right?
It's interesting as I was thinking about this topic, the first part of that during the right things. And I wonder, in the times that we live in now, what are the right things for us to, as industry or as leaders, to be really focused on during, this year, this time, and more specifically in the post-COVID or in the midst of COVID operation? Should the thinking be different now on what are the right things to be doing right during this time?
Wow, that's a very powerful question, Arthur. And I'll start by saying COVID has turned the world upside down. So hospitality was not spared in any way. However, our industry is always the slowest to adapt and to recover simply because of its tendency to be very needy of customers and international travelers and all these things that make their business a little more difficult than others because it's face-to-face. But I think as COVID hit this industry, owners have been very, very resistant in reopening, especially in cities where organized labor has a strong arm in it, and the cost of reopening. A true owner willing to invest back into this business should learn to empower their people to do the right thing right. And that empowerment comes from the confidence of believing in your leaders and listening to what they think are problematic areas. And from top to bottom, giving those leaders a chance to empower their folks to show the best experience to every customer that comes through the front door. I know that's a lot I've just said, but I'll give you a very perfect example. You have a guest who checks out at a hotel during COVID, and there are many things that don't look right anymore. People are walking around with face masks and people are not receiving room service. Guests are just unhappy with the solemn nature in which the building, appears to be. And so rather than apologizing to a guest for the situation or the environment they are confronted with, the front desk agent decides to just give this person a credit for the entire stay. Now, that is doing the right thing wrong.
This is an important one.
Okay.
The right thing wrong. Let's unpack that one. Tell us more.
Well, a guest should always have the right to voice their concerns about certain things that didn't happen the way they expected. And therefore, most of the time, they just want to hear your reasoning behind it. Why did my experience happen this way? Why was I not aware that there's no room service? Why was I not aware that I cannot get food delivered straight to my guest room door? And rather than telling the guest or giving them a rundown of some of the things that have changed on arrival, the front desk agent, out of panic, decided to just refund the entire stay to the guest to avoid any conflict at the front desk. It's just way too much money to give away. There was no attempt to even explain how services have differed during COVID. And yet the owner that had his or her door open for this guest lost all the money that was related to that reservation. So there's a training issue there. There's also a empowerment issue there. And perhaps neither one seemed important to the owner at one time or another.
What are things that leaders can do to help train their staff and how to do the right things right?
Before you train the employees that you are responsible for, you might want to ask them where they feel their training is needed. What kind of training would best empower your people to be more efficient and to be more fiduciarily responsible and to be more effective on their job on a day-to-day basis. So as in a hotel environment, Arthur, you know better than anyone, there's probably 18 departments that have to coincide with one another. And you and I both have enough stories to say that 17 out of those 18 departments are unaware of each other and what they're doing.
Right.
Training is a big expense. Not every owner is willing to provide training for all the different departmental managers that exist in a building before they even make any money.
Yeah. You also talked about empowerment, mentioned it a few times. How do you sell the concept of empowerment to an owner?
Well, first, you really need to twist their ears. Well, the best example I've always used is myself. You've hired me to do this. I've come to you at your front door with all the credentials that I think you were actually excited to learn of. And you've given me this responsibility. Now I need to give this responsibility down to 18 other people who are responsible for running this show. And we can either just let them run loosey-goosey and everybody do as they please and not realize the damage that is being done to the business, or we could have all 18 people sit in a room to understand each other, everybody's roles, how we play together, and what kind of tools we would need to do this job. I think just by that message alone, you would build a more effective and efficient team right before the eyes of the owner.
I love how you phrase it. Mr. Owner, you gave me this responsibility. Now I need to share this responsibility with the other members of the team in order for it to be effective. That's a different visual. And I've never thought of it that way. You've empowered me, you've given me some responsibility. Now I need to give. And yeah.
We also need the team to believe in us that we believe in them. We can't just throw them to the job and say, let's all do the best that we can. It's too vague. It's not directional. It's not structured. And I think most employees today would rather work in a structured environment where they know absolutely what their parameters are, know how to do it, and be able to converse and operate in the same manner with the other departments. That's always been lost in our hospitality industry.
Right. Interesting. You use the word parameters. So giving some boundaries, giving some framework or setting some expectations on what's possible. As I think about that, I want to share with you a story that I read recently. And I think this is an example of a company that they seem to have given their employees some boundaries to work within. And the company is Trader Joe's. I think most of our listeners are familiar with Trader Joe's.
Okay.
It's a pretty rock solid brand. I guess a boutique supermarket chain. Is that how you might describe them?
Yeah, you can call it that.
Yeah, that's how I describe them. But there's definitely a niche. And this is a story that I read recently about what someone experienced at Trader Joe's. It was a woman that was there with her mom. They were shopping. They met an employee. The guy's name was Charles. Charles walked up to the mom and asked how she was feeling and to tell her how beautiful her hair was.
I read that one.
Yeah, I know you did. And her mom told Charles, she was feeling sad because she had recently lost her husband. So Charles, in hearing this, took it upon himself. He went and got a bouquet of flowers, which is something, Trader Joe's has flowers. He got a box of Kleenex and a bottle of water, and then engaged with her for about 45 minutes as she cried and talked about her father. So he stopped in his day. I'm not sure what his job was, but he had some time and he spent it with her in that experience. And during that, the daughter described him as he was kind and gracious and even escorted them out to put groceries in their car. And this is one of the reasons why they absolutely love Trader Joe's. And in their eyes, it's all about the great employees going above and beyond and creating that Trader Joe's experience. And she chose to write this story up and post it on social media. And in the moment, Charles stopped what he was doing to connect with a guest in a very, how do I say it?
Unique and caring.
Yeah, unique, caring, heartfelt, and human way. I mean, she wasn't just a guest being pushed through the store, right? Which is too often, it feels like that's what happens in our industry. And our teams are often very focused on the process of getting people through the experience, right? Check them in, feed them the food, take care of the bags versus stopping and connecting with their personal needs.
Yeah, well, Arthur, tying that article that you read and so many read on LinkedIn is proof that you are an incredible listener. What you just laid out was an example of how the human touch is probably the most unique of all, regardless of the business that you're in. How many people go to a supermarket to buy things out of need, are in a rush, and they just don't know anyone who works there? But all of a sudden, they're confronted by someone so caring, so selfless, willing to hear her story, and then spending the time to comfort her is just unexpected. And that unexpected pleasantry is what empowerment is all about and how it's delivered and where the heart enters the scenario.
Yeah.
There's no textbook to teach you that. There's no training manual that will teach you that. After you learn your trade, how do you apply it with your heart? And when you insert your heart, what are the parameters or the boundaries?
Yeah, I love that story because that's an example of, like you said, it's connecting, it's coming from the heart, and just, contrasting that with the earlier example you gave where, something went wrong and they gave back the money, but there was no connection with the individual personalized experience and what they went through. And owners or the business's resources would have been better spent figuring out a way to connect with that individual in a manner which really spoke to them individually. And
yeah, that was a clear case of no one stopping to look or to listen, but just reacting and thinking that a refund would be the best appeasement for a 5-night stay where the guest was unhappy about one particular thing. So this is where the punishment is well above the crime.
yeah,
And then the money left on the table for the ownership was horrible. But the guests walked away, okay, I guess I didn't have to say much. I got all my money back. Let's go home. But that probably didn't stop the guests from writing a review or using that as an instance to replay in the future.
right. Yeah. So that concept of doing the right things right versus the right things wrong is a level of service and leading people to doing the right things right versus the right things wrong is a level of leadership. Great leaders get that and they figure out a way to do it and they make that a priority. And encourage your team to do the same thing.
And I've spent an awful amount of time throughout my career to make sure that I understand the people that I work with. I'm not here to dictate what you do. I'm here to observe and see what you do and perhaps see how I can help you do it even better. But we've got to work together, and your heart and your mind plays a big role in how you execute. So let's go have some fun.
There you go. You said two of my favorite words, heart and fun.
Yeah, I left the beer out. That would have been 3.
That's nice. That's nice.
So it's not rocket science. A lot of what we do, because it's hospitality, is ladies and gentlemen serving each other. It's our disposition. It's our body language. It's how we smile or when we don't. And if we just put our minds into what we do every day, there's got to be a better way than coming across robotic and heartless in everything that you do. And if that is the case, you do not belong in hospitality.
Which is interesting. So that's if you're attempting to do the right things in a robotic way, people feel that. And if you're not sincere or genuine, but you're still attempting to do what you think is the right thing, people feel that and you don't get the results that you're looking for because there's still that emotional connection that people seek and want in a real solid service experience.
Yeah.
David, you spent a lot of time in New York and the Northeast, and just curious about your take on leaders that are out there in those markets now and what they're dealing with. Any thoughts that you'd have specifically for those leaders who have gone through the last year and what many would call as ground zero, pandemic that we've been dealing with?
Yeah, there's a lot of planning and pre-planning involved to get your feet back on the ground. And our industry will probably end up being miserable for a little while longer, only because there's so much evolution in hospitality today that require less and less people, more and more automated systems, and technology is the driving force, as well as digital marketing. But before anyone frets over the loss of jobs or the loss of people and the same amount of manpower that he or she used to have in fighting the battle every day or commanding the troops every day, think about closely what you do have and how you make the best of what you have. You cannot reopen a hotel of 1,700 keys and bring back 2,400 employees. That's simply just not possible. So do whatever research you need to do, but understand the people that you have who are willing to come to the table and join hands with you to tackle this job every day and see how you can bring the best out of them, continue to support them, and have that culture show itself in the bottom line.
So what I hear you saying, anticipate change and technology is going to be
Be a driving
shifting.
force.
Yeah.
It will.
Do you see COVID as being the tipping point or the catalyst to push technology faster? Or would this have happened eventually?
No, COVID lit the fuse sooner than later. There's no question that COVID will be everyone's excuse because now you have guests who don't want to have any communication or contact with the front desk. If you're a loyalty member with any large hotel organization, or if you're a point junkie or a miles junkie, you know that you have the ability to check in with your cell phone, never even have to stop by the front desk. You can check out from your cell phone. And when you're in the hotel, you can order all types of services through another different app or a QR code and all these things. So people are not enjoying the art of befriending others nowadays. The industry is heading in a generation of people wanting to avoid each other. So if technology doesn't drive that, or COVID-19 is not the excuse to drive that, then I don't think anything else will.
Interesting. So there's going to be, it sounds like we're set up for an interesting couple years as we figure this out and transition and see where this takes us. Technology
it's here to stay. There's no reason for it not to innovate businesses, namely ours. But our industry has always been the slowest to respond. And if nothing else, we are entering a phase of our industry where technology is taking over, for better or for worse. But bottom line, for savings for the ownership.
Have you seen any good new applications or new good uses of technology that have really helped create this, an environment of doing the right things right, where either technology has been a tool or been an enhancement or?
I'll break it up into two pieces, Arthur. Doing the right thing right comes from the heart, and it comes from the technicalities and the training that you have garnered in your life and acquired, right? And companies out there, yes, there is a very few that have launched applications that allow ownership groups to cut back as much as 35% in costs, some even slightly higher. And it's all done through apps and people not encountering people at all, so that if you needed something that was housekeeping related or security related, it's just a push of a button and it's delivered.
Sounds like if you're a leader that's in one of those environments and, this type of technology is being looked at or being rolled out, the smartest thing you can do is to make sure you understand it and you figure out a way to put yourself in a place where you're someone that is a super user or someone who understands it thoroughly so that you can really position yourself as being valuable and rolling it out and maintaining it versus the last thing you want to do, and I would suggest you do, is try to fight it, because I think David brings up some really good points here in that, there's some technology innovations that are being out faster because of the times that we're in, and they're probably here to stay.
Yeah, Marriott had an article just published last week where they're announcing the introduction of a huge supermarket kiosk in their lobby areas right next to the front desk. You want a cup of coffee, you want a sandwich, you want earplugs, you want theater tickets. It's all in front of you. You just pick what you want. That's amazing. It's unlike anything the industry has ever seen.
Well, the one thing that machines or computers still can do, though, and then I'm going to bring us back around as we kind of wrap things up to this whole concept of doing the right things right. When something breaks down or there's a service failure, I don't know of a computer or technology platform that can solve that for the customer or that effectively interfaces with the customer to solve that. We're still going to need people and leaders that can lead in that environment and handle those situations well. And in those situations, come at it from a point of heart, connect with the customer, make sure you personalize the response and you do the right thing right for that individual and for that individual situation. Sometimes it's easier said than done, but the key there is coming at it from the heart. And,
you're absolutely right.
Yeah. In the long run, that will be a much better place to operate from than coming at it from the place of a robotic, repetitive, this is how we do business. That never works. It never works. So David, man, listen, I want to thank you for joining us today on this topic of doing the right things right and sharing your insights of what's happening in the areas of our business. Really appreciate you and just want to thank you. So,
Arthur, thank you as well. It's been fun.
This is the final episode of our inaugural season, and it's been a heck of a ride and a heck of a journey for me personally. I've definitely enjoyed the many topics we've covered and spending time with our special guests that have walked this journey with me. Definitely big love and appreciation to the members of the crew and their work that they've done on the podcast. I'm looking forward to coming back in a few months, ramping back up and getting right back into providing content that informs, inspires, and transforms emerging leaders in hospitality. Until then, connect with me at arthurkeith.com. Stay focused on being the leader that you're meant to be and do the right things right. And thank you, and have a great day.
Look for us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Find the links on arthurkeith.com. What do you stand for?